Hello, everybody. Welcome to the show. Glad you could join me here tonight. As usual, and as I have in my pinned message in the live chat window, if you are joining me live in the live chat and you have something for me in the live chat, you want to ask me a question or be generous and drop in a super chat or something like that, that's always welcome. But if at all possible, please hang on to that until after I get through the first part of the show, which is where I answer questions that were submitted ahead of time by my wonderful patrons and channel members. So here we go. Let's get started, as pretty much always, with the patron and member questions. And the first patron question or member question comes from Matt, who says, about your recent Roe video, I do agree that Democrats should fight harder, and frankly, justices have become greedy of sorts. RBG, even though I support almost everything she ever did, should have retired in 2010 or so, instead of just leaving it up to hope and chance that she live long enough to be replaced by a Dem Prez. On a happier note, I really did like Strange New Worlds, and hopefully the episodic format returns. Sometimes season-long stories get boring when it's 10 to 20 episodes waiting for one hopefully good enough payoff. Well, I will go ahead and just second both of those. As far as I'll take the second one first. Yeah, I think I have thought for a while uh, that the best way to tell stories in a series like a TV series or a comic book or anything like that is to do mostly standalone stories, but have things that carry over. So each episode is a self-contained story with a beginning and a middle and an end, but the characterization sticks and accumulates. There are plot threads that kind of cross over from episode to episode and build up and lead to big things, later on in the season. But it should be episodic storytelling first and foremost, with serialized elements threaded through. And that seems to be what Strange New Worlds is doing. There are things that have carried over in terms of characterization from the first episode to the second episode, and presumably will continue to be that way for the rest of the season. But each episode has its own unique story, and I don't think that's the best way just to do Star Trek. I think that's the best way to do anything. I think if you're doing a you know a 10 episode season, let's say, but you're doing it one episode at a time. You're not doing like a 10-hour movie. You're doing 10 1-hour segments. Well, then those 1-hour segments should be treated like short stories rather than chapters in a book. That's just how I feel about it. I do think that form should dictate content to a certain degree. So yeah, and as for your first point there about RBG and Supreme Court justices becoming greedy, yeah, I feel exactly the same way. I admire Ruth Bader Ginsburg immensely. I think she is or was a figure of history. She was a legendary American. But do I think she should have retired during the Obama presidency? Yeah, absolutely I do. Absolutely I do. I mean, hindsight is 2020, of course, but yeah, of course she should have. So, but she didn't, and now it's something we all have to deal with. So yeah, I am in full agreement on both both points. Here's one from Andrew seeking moral guidance from Steve and the Steve Sphere. Oh, please, God. Hopefully it's nothing important. Okay, so this is about guns. But for once, it's not a rant. My prohibited weapons and ammunition license expires at the end of this month. I don't need it. I deactivated all my firearms around 8 years ago, and I've never personally owned any ammunition, but I'm trying to decide if I should apply for permission to sell them or if I should keep them. They're worth quite a lot of money, and as much as I've grown to hate gun culture, I do have a sentimental attachment to them. I've made 2 of them myself when I worked at H&H, and they are completely unique. I'm of 2 minds about it. They're secured in my gun locker in the loft, and even though it would be all but impossible for someone to reactivate them, at least if I keep them, I know they'll always just be ornamental, but I can't help feeling like a hypocritical dick, considering how much I hate gun culture. I seek your moral guidance. Oh, great, Steve. I would say keep them. If the two choices that you have kind of landed on are keep them or sell them, I mean, unless you need the money, and it would, and it's that kind of a situation. If you can afford to keep them, I would say keep them, because then you know where they are. As you say, they're locked up in your gun locker, and they are not out there in the world somewhere. Even though they've been deactivated, and good on you for that, and even though they would not most likely ever pose a threat to anybody, just the idea of contributing to that, and putting them out into the world, right? My advice would be to keep them, but your mileage may vary. You might get better advice from somebody else who would convince you to sell them. And I mean, the most important thing is that you've deactivated them. They can't hurt anybody. It's more about really the symbolism of it, I guess. But if I were in your position, I would rather. I mean, if I were in your position, I probably would, not only deactivate them but destroy them. But you have a sentimental attachment to them, so I can understand why you might not want to do that. But I would keep them. Keep them in your possession and lock them up. That's my advice. Jason M, in the voice of Newman from Seinfeld. Hello, Steve. I've watched your review of Strange New Worlds, and as of writing this, about to watch the stream with you and Jesse Gender. My question is, of course, in your opinion, why do you think the writers of Strange New Worlds are seemingly putting together a better written and paced show than those of the recently completed Picard Season 2? Do you think it is the influence of producers like Sir Patrick and such changing course, or is that particular team just very inept? Sorry if it's a long post. I would like to add, I do enjoy the new Trek, all of it, but I can see the flaws in pacing and content compared to classic Trek, and even Strange New Worlds and Disco starting to find its footing. Side note, Doctor Strange in the Multiverse of Madness gave away the villain in its title when you shorten it to MOM. Spoilers, God. So wait, whose mom? Whose mom is the villain? I don't get it. Well, I don't think it's not that the writers of Picard are inept, because it's a lot of the same writers. Akiva Goldsman in particular, who prior to his contributions to Star Trek, I considered one of the worst successful screenwriters ever. I mean, the movies he have written have largely been either extremely underwhelming or outright garbage. I have not considered him a good writer at all. And he is a showrunner, or I don't know if he was the showrunner on Picard, but he's an executive producer on Picard, and he's an executive producer, and I think even a credited co-creator on Picard and on Strange New Worlds. So he is involved creatively very much in the new Star Trek shows. He's involved very much in Strange New Worlds, just as he is in Picard, and Strange New Worlds so far has been terrific, and Picard season 2 was not good at all. So it's not that they have different writers or they have different producers. It's a lot of the same people working on both shows, and also some crossover with Discovery as well. So that's not it. I think part of it is the format. As I said in the response to that previous question, I do think that form should dictate content to a certain extent. And I think that form inevitably does dictate content, whether you think it should or not. I for whatever reason, and I'm not sure why this is, and it's one of the things that I find really frustrating about season 2 of Picard, because I can't really explain it, especially when we're talking about professional writers. But the creative teams of the current crop of Star Trek shows, at least the live action ones, just can't seem to figure out how to do serialized storytelling. Discovery has gotten better at it over the years. Discovery had a pretty rough first season as far as that goes. The second season was better. The third season was not bad. The fourth season kind of took a plunge, especially in the second half, but then came back a little bit for a strong finish. But like, they've had problems all through it. There hasn't been a season of Discovery, including the ones that I have for the most part really liked, that has not had noticeable and at times even serious pacing problems. And with Picard, they're even worse. The first season of Picard had them, and the second season of Picard was almost nothing but them. So they haven't gotten better at the storytelling. So because they can't figure out season-long serialized story arcs for whatever reason, I think it suits this team of writers better to do more episodic stories. I think it just plays more to their strengths and avoids their weaknesses, because serialized storytelling is obviously a major weakness for these creators. So I think that's a big part of it, is that it's more episodic. Also, I think they're kind of, even though Strange New Worlds is also a prequel, there is a feeling that they're kind of starting fresh. You know, they're dealing with characters that, yes, are established in other Star Trek productions, but we're getting them in this little pocket of time where we can kind of recreate them and make them into slightly different people. And so there is a sense of freshness about it, and sort of starting from square one. That maybe gives them a feeling of a little bit more creative freedom, you know? So that's part of it as well. But I think, I do think a lot of it is just the change in format, the change to a more episodic show. I think that is just more suited to the strengths of these writers. Orion McMurray says, "Hello, Steve. I hope you are doing well, and happy late/early birthday." That would be late, but thank you very much. I appreciate it. My question is, was Alfred a Batman before Bruce? Bruce Wayne? I honestly don't know if he ever played cricket or not. I mean, I suppose he could have when he was a younger man. I don't really see Alfred at his age, as he is typically depicted in the present day of the Batman comics, as much of a cricket player. But I suppose he could have been a Batman when he was a younger man, or, you know, maybe depending on when he moved to the States, I guess he could have been. We don't call them Batmen, we call them batters. But, you know, he could have been a baseball player, I suppose. Yeah. And Bruce is a very clever nickname for Bruce Wayne, so I commend you on that. Next question is from David Colby. "Dastardly dictator of derivative duologues, determined to create by cruel chaos constant consternation." Oh boy, I adore alliteration. "Tremble, Earthman, for my mighty space questions may prove too much for your primitive mind. I've been writing for the past few weeks a novel called Jasmine Star Against the Emperor of Space. And now I can't stop talking like this, infected by the unremittent ham of a 50s cereal. Which leads me inevitably to the singularly significant part of the viciously vivisected Voyager, the simplistic sibling show to the much-esteemed Deep Space Nine, Captain Photon." I believe you mean Captain Proton, but I will let that slide. "Which, dear Shives, was your favorite Captain Proton appearance? Answer quick, lest you find yourself taken forthwith to the deatomizer." I guess the one where Janeway had to play Chaotica. It was just called Bride of Chaotica? Or no, Janeway played the bride, and Chaotica was the bad guy, and Janeway played the bride. I don't know. I can't remember. It's Voyager. Who gives a fuck? I think that one, the one where it was most of the episode, and, you know, and Janeway had to get in on the act and play the villainess at the end. That one. I other than the general gimmick of they're playing like a 1950s serial kind of thing, like, I don't really remember much about the Captain Proton stuff from Voyager. Like, I remember that it was there, and I remember sort of the gist of it, but I don't remember specifics about any of the episodes, other than I remember there was that one where it was basically the whole episode, and Janeway got into it as a part of the show. And I think the Doctor played the president. But in terms of like the story and everything, I remember basically nothing. So I'm just going to go with that one. I did remember that it's Captain Proton, not Captain Photon, though. So Ahoy Irno says, "Did you have a good sugar fest? Eid al-Fitr. As an atheist, I still recognize a good opportunity for a party. I had a great time in a tent with a lot of people just having fun, dancing and eating. It was great." Well, I'm very glad you had a good time. That sounds like my notion of hell. I am seriously glad you had a good time, but no, I barely celebrate the holidays that are part of the culture I was raised in. I do not seek out holidays from other cultures to celebrate. I think they're wonderful, and I'm glad that people celebrate them and have a good time. But the idea of going to a large gathering of people, especially in a tent. Like, nothing against tents. It's more like the combination of large group of people and tent, and also coronavirus. I hope everybody was vaccinated or masked or testing or something. I mean, if we keep pretending the pandemic's over, it's never going to be over. I'll just throw that out there. Not trying to guilt trip you over here. I'm glad you had a good time. I trust that everybody was being responsible, but you know, but no, that doesn't sound like my idea of a good time at all, but I'm glad you had a good time. So thanks for sharing. Devera DC says, hiya, Steve, new subscriber and elated Patreon supporter here. Well, thank you very much. Welcome. Given the train wreck of the second season of Star Trek Picard, any thoughts on the third and final season, given they were supposedly filming the second and third seasons back to back? I hear it features a lot of the old TNG cast. Side question, if permitted. I've wondered if some of the second season story choices have had to do with our beloved Sir P. Stew's ability to handle a more strenuous role. I'm of the mind to enjoy him for as long as we have him, but man, that was a slog. Thanks again for all you do. I mean, Patrick Stewart is obviously getting on in years and is not able to be as physically active as he once was. So, I mean, I do think that it certainly played a role in the type of story they could tell and what Picard's role in it could be. Obviously, you can't do a very action-heavy story with Picard at the center of it. You can have action elements involving other characters, but Picard himself can't really do a lot of swashbuckling anymore, which again, is fine. Like, that's not, you can write around that. Like, it doesn't need to mean that the story is slow and boring. It doesn't mean that you can't have anything happen. But yeah, I hope that season 3 will be better than season 2. I would like for season 3 to actually be good, even not just better than season 2, but be good. But I really don't know. I mean, season 2 was not good at all, and season 2 was bad in ways that suggested that they did not feel any need to alter course after season 1. There were mistakes they made in season 1 that they made way, way more of in season 2, and that affected the show negatively to a much more serious degree in season 2 than in season 1. So that doesn't really fill me with confidence for season 3, but who knows? I mean, I guess we'll just have to wait and see. But yeah, I mean, I think some of the story choices may have had to do with Stewart's abilities and what he could do on camera, but that by itself is not an explanation for why the season was the way it was. But I'm sure that had something to do with it, sure. Cassie Volpine, how cool is it that they recreated the space dock glory shots of the Enterprise from Star Trek I, the motionless picture in the first episode of Strange New Worlds? This train of thought led me on a meandering path to my final question. Wouldn't it be weird if Pike created V'ger by accident, but like in a really stupid way? End of the series, the Enterprise clips Voyager 6, which gets pulled into what we once called a black hole? Mental. Also, how about that episode 2, which as of writing hasn't come out yet, huh? Well, you were right. Episode 2 was quite good as well, I thought. So, good guess. Yeah, what I liked about the beauty shots of the Enterprise is that there weren't that many of them and they didn't last that long. There's nothing wrong with doing those beauty shots of the ship. It's a way of visually introducing the ship. And when you have the first episode of a show, that's always going to be a jumping on point for people. I'm sure there are many fans watching for whom Strange New Worlds is their first Star Trek. So they don't know all this stuff. They don't have a pre-existing knowledge of or affection for the Enterprise. So since the show is going to take place pretty much entirely inside this spaceship that is going to be carrying these characters across the universe, it's good to give audiences a sense of what the ship is, what it looks like, what its arrangement is, and also to emphasize that the ship is important, that we should care about the ship. So having those beauty shots in the first episode of Strange New Worlds it serves a narrative function as well as like a fan service. Oh, behold the glory of our beloved Enterprise, kind of thing. And I liked them a lot because they made the point and then they moved on. It wasn't like Star Trek the Motion Picture where it's like, oh, Jesus, are they going to fly all the way around the ship? Like they really did take their time showing you the Enterprise. And Strange New Worlds did that just enough to get the point across and to tell you what you needed to know if this is your first outing with Star Trek. And then they got on with it. And I thought that was terrific. And as for your Voyager 6 thing, it's it's a funny idea. It's a funny idea. If I were show running the series, I would not ever do that, but it's a really funny idea. Agent Meister, Peldor Joy, Steve, in your video about Pulaski, who I never had a problem with, by the way, you opined that there have been very little laughing in modern Trek when the crews ruminate on their latest adventure at the end of each episode, as so often happened in TOS. How would you feel about resurrecting that tradition? I was thinking how super it would be if you would end each of your videos with a chuckle to begin with, or maybe even a giggle or a titter, then up the ante to a proper laugh, not maniacal like the Joker or anything, just some chortling and then finally a hearty guffaw by the time you fade to black. Be the change you want in the world, Shives. Also, which is your favorite TNG title card? The one for the first half of the show's run or the one that looks like it's being beamed onto the screen in later seasons? I'll sign off by paraphrasing the wonderful Modest Mouse, of whom you have spoken highly in the past, by saying that I hope you and yours all flowed on all right. Thank you very much for quoting Modest Mouse. I always appreciate that. And same to you. Favorite TNG title card is the main one, the original one, the one that's just the flat text, not the 3D like coming at ya text. I mean, that was cool. I didn't have a problem with that. But it's a little Superman for Star Trek. You know what I mean? It's like, no, we don't need to do that. You don't need to do the 3D like, whatcha, Star Trek Next Generation. But it was fine. And as for the giggle thing, plans are in the works for some kind of end episode laugh gag coming up soon. That's all I can say. Plans are in the works. And it's all your fault. Madeline says, hey, Steve, hope you're doing well. I recently watched all of the Christopher Reeves Superman movies, so I gotta ask, how do you rank them best to worst? 2, 1, 3, 4. And theatrical cut of 2, not the Donner cut. The Donner cut is not considered because the Donner cut is not actually a movie. The Donner cut is a hypothetical movie. The Donner cut is a very cool DVD extra. Like, it's not a proper movie. It's an unfinished film. It is a meditation on a film that might have been. Let's put it that way. I like it. I like the Donner cut a lot, but it's not a movie, I mean, when you're having to fill in gaps with footage from screen tests and obvious body doubles and stuff, like, that's not a movie. It's well, like I said, it's bonus material, and it's awesome for that, but it's not a movie. So Superman 2, Superman 1, Superman 3, Superman 4. Those are how I would rank them. And Superman 2 and Superman 1 are like right there neck and neck. I love both of those. But that could go either way, because Superman 1 and Superman 2 are very close to my heart, both of them. So, but if I had to pick, I'd say 2, then 1. General Contact Unit Problem Child. Something I find odd about the U.S. is even though your elected officials keep getting more and more reactionary, your popular culture keeps getting more and more socially progressive. Like, red states are trying to pass laws criminalizing letting kids transition at the exact same time Toon Disney is introducing the first non-binary characters in their show. If those two trends continue, do you think they'll come into conflict at some point? Like, now they have effective control of the Supreme Court. Do you think it's plausible a future Republican majority will try to pass some modern version of the Hays Code, i.e. one that would make it illegal to depict LGBTQ people in a positive light in any film or TV show produced in the US. P.S. If they can take away a pregnant person's bodily autonomy in general just becomes a privilege the state can revoke. It's not a right anymore. P.S. Solidarity with the people of Ukraine. Goddamn right. That wouldn't shock me if the Republicans tried to pass some kind of Hays Code. They are incredibly moralistic people, and they're huge hypocrites. Their supposed principles of small government are just a put on. Like, that's not something they actually believe. They're perfectly happy to use the power of government to impose things on people and rob people of their liberty if they think it's the right thing to do. So I don't think that, I don't see it happening soon, but at the same time, I mean, if the Republicans gained majorities in Congress and won the White House and announced that as a piece of legislation, it wouldn't shock me. I mean, I wouldn't be like, oh, I never saw that coming. Like, it's perfectly fitting with their character. The thing that gives me some hope is that it's artificial because, as you point out, popular culture continues to get more progressive. And, you know, if the fine folks at Disney really thought that those Republicans spoke for most people in this country, including the people that they're counting on to go see their movies and buy their merch and visit their theme parks, et cetera, then Disney would not have reversed course on the Don't Say Gay bill, and Disney would not be trying to do things that are that are positive outreaches to the LGBTQ community, right? They would not be doing that if they didn't think they had to, or if they didn't think that it was good business. You know, so that the fact that the more progressive popular culture and things like that are evidence of actual advancement and progress in society and positive changes in people's attitudes, while the Republican stuff is completely artificial. It's something that is being imposed on people by a minority through things like voter suppression and such. That gives me some hope for the long-term future. Doesn't mean it's going to be any easier here in the short term, but long-term, it gives me some reason to be hopeful. Some random geek who is plotting an evil scheme. First of all, Steve, happy birthday. Since your birthday was on May 5th, or Revenge of the 5th, you know who else has a birthday this month? Shit tons of people, of course, but also my younger brother on the 26th. Yes, the Gamer Gator Trump supporter younger brother who I fucking live with. I'm getting ideas for troll gifts to give him. For example, I gave him Susan Faluti's Backlash, a feminist book about the backlash that women's rights suffered in the 80s. I also gave him Angry White Men by Michael S. Kimmel. I may or may not give him a gift of a game code or something. I also want to know from Steve's audience, too. Everyone. What kind of troll gift should I give to a Gamer Gator Trump supporter? The option of nothing is there too. I do need to save money in order to be able to give money to my friends in need, like Joanna Roberts and Phoenix, who have their links in charitylinks.page. Yes, indeed. They always need money because of capitalism and ableism. Thanks as always, Steve. Yeah, anybody in the live chat who has suggestions for great troll gifts that Geek could could give to their brother, toss him in there. That would be fantastic. And I hope your brother has a very happy birthday, Geek. Stephen G. Clenard. Steve, you're a DC Comics guy. Maybe you can help me with some questions that have been vexing me for some time. There seems to be a significant imbalance between the numbers of male and female superheroes. What can we do to encourage young girls to pursue careers as heroes? Do you think the women of the Justice League have a private Slack channel and keep a list of which male heroes are abusers, harassers, or creeps? I'm looking at you, Booster Gold. Speaking of which, do you think this would make a good premise for a supervillain? The mighty microaggression man? A man with the power to create a hostile work environment while maintaining a veneer of plausible deniability? But when the online argument gets heated, he solemnly repeats the ancient oath of the problematic atheist celebrity corps. I consider myself to be a feminist. Joining the fray alongside his pals, Oblivious to Privilege Lad, Turf Girl, Carries Water for Fascists Man, and the Gaslighter. Thoughts? If they ever reboot Freakazoid as an adults show and it's aimed at an adult audience instead of kids, I would love to see the problematic atheist celebrity core. I would love to see Mighty Microaggression Man and Oblivious to Privilege Lad and Turf Girl and Carries Water for Fascists Man and the Gaslighter brought to life through beautiful, probably kind of low budget animation. And they would and they would be the butt of many jokes tossed out by that hilarious hero known as Freakazoid. Um, that's fantastic. And also the idea of the women in the Justice League having like a Slack channel that they can talk to each other about who the harassers are. That is fucking brilliant. I would love to do that. I wouldn't save that for a joke story. I would put that in an actual Justice League story. That would be fantastic. Just think of a couple of male heroes that you wouldn't mind sort of sacrificing to it. You know, like you wouldn't want to say, oh, but you know who's the worst? Superman. Like you wouldn't want to do that. But pick a couple of male characters who you wouldn't mind depicting them as shitty guys behind the scenes. Like that wouldn't ruin anything or disillusion too many people. So yeah, Booster Gold is perfect. I love Booster Gold, but you know, it's like, come on, there's the top tier and then Booster Gold is down here somewhere. But yeah, I think that's a great idea. I would love to see something like that in like an actual comic book. Thinking cat something saber cat when with Klingons. Okay. Steve, when are you going to cover the best new Star Trek show, the fantastic Star Trek Prodigy? It is not only up there with Beast Wars and the new He-Man CGI show, I love how darkness-free it is. I haven't watched Brave New Worlds yet. I guess Strange New Worlds is what you mean, as I usually wait now till an entire show is out, mainly because I find I have less disappointment, really. The only show I enjoyed with its weekly episodes has been the Disney Plus show Moon Knight. Prodigy I love mainly because it feels like classic Trek. I quite like Lower Decks, but it is a parody, and the stories are not really highbrow, but amazingly, for a show for kids, Prodigy, especially in the episode Time Amuck, feels like something from Voyager or TNG. Speaking of Voyager, the joy of seeing the holographic Janeway teaching lessons on the Prime Directive and a plot which is not completely clear on where the original crew of the Protostar are, and thought we find snippets of information. The ship was a prototype being tested by Captain Chakotay, a great mystery. I agree with you. I think Prodigy has been very good so far. And that episode you mentioned specifically, Time Amuck, which was that the last episode that they released? Or was there an episode after? But it was one of the more recent episodes that they released. Yeah, it was an excellent episode. It was a really, really, really good episode. Not just for a kid's show, but for a Star Trek show. Like, it was really solid. I think Prodigy has been excellent. I am definitely going to do a video about it. I want to wait until the entire first season has been released. And they're Jesse and I talked about this on our live stream last week. They're kind of using Prodigy to fill in holes in the release schedule. So they're doing 10 episodes of Strange New Worlds. And then when that's done, I'm not sure if when that's done, if they're going to release more Prodigy for a little bit, or if they're going to go straight into Lower Decks, or what the plan is. But they want to have like a new Star Trek episode every week for the year, I think is the idea. So they want to kind of space it out so that they get 52 episodes out this year, one per week. So I don't know how long it'll be before Prodigy's entire first season has been released, but once it has, I am definitely going to do a video about it because I like it a lot. And I think it has done a better job of serialized storytelling than Discovery or certainly Picard have done so far. And, Strange New Worlds is doing more episodic storytelling. It's not really trying to be serialized, except like I said, for the character stuff that carries forward from episode to episode. But Prodigy has struck a really good balance of single episode stories, but also having like a mystery or a multi-episode arc that carries across the season. It's for the most part avoided the pacing problems that have beleaguered the other shows. So I've been very impressed by it. So I will definitely be doing a video about it at some point. It just depends on how long it is before they release the rest of the first season. Jim Baker, recent headlines. Abortion bill fails in the Senate. At first blush, this seems like a rallying cry for progressives to get out and vote this fall. And while I agree with that general sentiment, I have to point out this is exactly the point of introducing the bill to begin with. The vote was predictably split along party lines, with the exception of Manchin, who broke party lines to vote with his fellow Republicans as usual. While the Republican Party is still stuck in their acid trip back to the 50s, the Democrats reliably continue to play politics rather than actually try to get anything done. It turns out the bill contained a rule that would force Catholic hospitals to perform abortions in violation of their religious beliefs. This is obvious overreaching. The bill was intended to fail to retain the issue for the midterms. It was never about making law. It's all propaganda. Clowns to the left of me, jokers to the right. I know I'm running out of space as always. Thoughts? I think they knew it was going to fail, but I'm not sure what else. At this point, I'm not sure what else they could have done. Now, I did a video last week talking about how they should have been doing a hell of a lot more going back years and years and years to avoid ever even getting to this point. Like, I'm totally with you that they should have been doing a hell of a lot more, you know, for the last several decades to prevent this from happening, you know. But given where we are right now and everything that has already happened, I'm not sure what else they were supposed to do, because they don't have the votes to pass the bill in the Senate. The Republicans weren't going to vote for it, and they don't have a filibuster-proof majority, and they can't end the filibuster because not enough of the fucking Democrats support ending the filibuster. They would need every single vote, every single Democrat in the Senate to vote to suspend or get rid of the filibuster, and Manchin and Sinema are saying they will not support that. So given those circumstances, I'm not sure what else they could have done. And I don't think it's necessarily a bad idea to put the bill up for a vote and to force Republicans to vote against it and to give Democrats a chance to vote for it, so that they can then go into the midterms and say, look, if you give us more players on our team, then we can pass this and we can beat this thing. We've shown that we're willing to do it. We put the bill up. We all, except for Manchin, fuck him, we all voted for it. If there had been enough of us who could have either broken the filibuster or enough of us who are willing to get rid of the filibuster in order to pass it, we could have done something about this. So you need to support us and vote for us in the midterms so that we can, those of us who are running for re-election can hold our seats, and those of us who are running to replace some of these Republican assholes can win those seats, and then we can start to make some positive change. I don't think that's a terrible strategy at this point. Now, like I said in my video, and like I've said many times, Democratic complacency and Democratic cowardice is partially to blame for us being in the place that we are. So it's not like the Democrats are completely off the hook, but given the circumstances at the moment, I feel like that's probably one of the strongest moves they could make. So I'm not mad at them for doing that. I'm mad at them for all the stuff they haven't done in the last 30, 40 years, but I'm not mad at them for what they did this past week. So yeah, anyway, that's what I think. Kevin C. Jones. Hey, Steve, I had mostly the same reaction you did to Picard season 2. I actually liked episode 1, but then it sort of became a parody of itself. With the TNG cast coming back for season 3, what do you think the writers can do to salvage this mess? I mean, there's hope, right? Well, yes, of course there's hope. Here's salvage this mess isn't how I would look at it. They just need to write a good show. Season 1 was beset by problems, was flawed, let's say. Season 2 was an absolute disaster. But just because season 1 was underwhelming and season 2 was fucking dreadful doesn't mean anything with season 3. Season 3 could be fantastic if they write it that way. Like, there's nothing about it's not like they have to dig themselves out of a hole. They have to dig themselves out of a hole in terms of fan perception, because a lot of people, now, I mean, a lot of fans really liked Picard season 2, but if they want to win over the fans that didn't like it, then yes, they have to dig themselves out of a hole as far as that goes. But in terms of just the way they're writing the show and the kinds of stories that they could tell with season 3, there's no the hole is imaginary. It's like when you're it's psychological. It's like when you're in a slump in baseball. You know, the fact that you have struck out the last 20 times in a row, that doesn't mean you're going to strike out this time. It has absolutely nothing to do with it. It feels like it has something to do with it, but it doesn't. It has no bearing on it whatsoever. This is a completely new thing. The thing you're doing right now is completely new and completely separate from that old thing you did. And even though you sucked at that last thing you did, that doesn't mean that you're going to suck this time. This time you could fucking knock it out of the park. And that's what could happen with season 3. Now, given their track record, do I expect that? Given the fact that they learned nothing from Picard season 1 and Picard season 2 was even worse in a lot of the same ways and in some absolutely baffling ways that I've never quite seen on a professionally produced television show, doesn't fill me with confidence. But that doesn't mean that season 3, that the odds are impossible or that season 3 can't, that there's no way it can be any good. That's not the way to look at it. It's not that they have to salvage the mess. They have to write good TV, and that's not impossible, you know? So, yes, there's still hope. There is certainly still hope, and there will be hope right up until they air the first episode of season 3. And then either that hope will be vindicated and we can be like, oh, it looks like it's going to be good. Or we can be like, oh shit, that's pretty much what I expected, you know, but we'll have to wait and see. But of course there's still hope. Isaiah Taylor. So I know you're not a Star Trek Generations fan, but I have to disagree with you. As someone who went to film school and studied color grading and color correction, I thought Generations' view of the Enterprise D was amazing with its color and set aesthetic. None of that awful white stage lighting from the series. The 10 forward scene, all awash in the light from the Amargosa star, is very good. I can see myself in my new teal and black DS9 science jumpsuit, working in my naturally lit quarters, warm starlight on my face, catching up on planetary geology work on my LCAR's personal computer while listening to Swing Out Sister, an Earth music group from the late 20th century, playing on an ancient silicone storage wafer called a CD? I guess that's what they used to call them anyway. What artistic aesthetic in Star Trek do you like? Did Late Seating Podcast fanfic episodes on Rambo First Blood and 2012. P.S. I thought of the Star Trek Generation scene while high. LOL. Thank you. I will agree with you with what you say about the lighting and the aesthetic. I do think the way they shot those Next Generation sets in the movie made them look really good. You're right. The change in lighting from the flat TV lighting to the more dramatic film lighting, I thought was excellent. Definitely gave a shot in the arm to the look of the show and to that film. So, I mean, I don't think there's anything wrong with the way they shot it, with the way the Enterprise interiors look. I mean, I think it's a bad movie because of the way it's written. The way it looks, I think is not terrible. I don't think it's like extraordinary. I don't think it's like the best looking Star Trek movie by any stretch of the imagination, but I do think it, I mean, it's certainly visually a big step up from the TV show. What's my favorite Star Trek aesthetic? Star Trek 2 and Star Trek 6. I think I've talked about that before. I love, especially the interiors of the Enterprise on Star Trek 6. I love the control panels, the sort of the mechanical switches, the design of the bridge, the way they took the TNG corridors and pushed them closer together so that they had more narrow hallways like a submarine or like a battleship. I really like the Star Trek 6 aesthetic, and I like the Star Trek 2 aesthetic as well. Those are probably in fact, I was talking to Dana earlier in a private conversation. We were talking about Star Trek, go figure. And I told her that I think Star Trek 2 is probably my high point of Star Trek just overall. And aesthetically, for sure, you know, I like the look of it. I like the feel of it. That to me is what Star Trek should look and feel like. And if I were doing a Star Trek show or a Star Trek movie, that's the feeling and the aesthetic that I would aim for. is Star Trek 2. And a lot of that is there in Star Trek 6 as well, because it's Nick Meyer directing both films. Joe McClory, fuck, have you ever gotten the feeling that the whole American experiment was a mistake? There are laws on the books right now that once the opinion is formal will make it illegal for a doctor to save a woman's life in a foolhardy attempt to save a clearly non-viable pregnancy. One thing that really gets me is that this will all be enforced by our already flawed justice system. So the rich will still be able to have reproductive rights under the table, while poor people will be convicted of murder when they have miscarriages of pregnancies that would have carried to term. And it gets worse because I know the ghouls that put this forward will not be punished for it. They've made half the population less free, and it will not destroy the Republican Party, in part because the Democratic Party will not let them be destroyed, because then they would have to fucking do something instead of saying voting for Republicans will make things worse. So any rage, energy, direction, suggestions? God, you're asking the wrong dude, buddy. Beating the fuck out of your mattress with a baseball bat, that can be fun because you got the springiness, like just be careful that you don't do like a head-on swing, because it'll bounce right back and hit you in the head. This never happened to me. I'm just saying it makes sense that that's how it would happen. The arc would come right back and hit you in the head. So, stand off to the side or swing like that or something, but beating the shit out of your bed with a baseball bat, I would go with that. Or maybe, set up like a backstop in your backyard and just whip baseballs into it or something. Something physical activity, work out, go for a run, go for a hike, climb a tree, get a heavy bag and some boxing gloves and just work that fucker, like something like that, to let the energy out, to focus on something that you don't have to think about. You can just be pure emotion and just get it out. Something like that, I would say. As far as, channeling your rage in a more constructive direction, I can't think of anything at the moment, but perhaps people in the chat will have some suggestions for you, Joe. Russell says, hey, Steve, I hope you are well. Anyways, I wanted to talk about DS9 and some questions I may have for the show since I've been rewatching it. But I also know you and Dana are watching it for her first time. May I still ask these questions? Well, first of all, yes, you may. Anyways, today's Q&A is going to be somewhat personal. I need an outsider opinion, and I'm sorry if this is too personal. Anyway, here goes. My boss of 19 years took retirement and then just stopped showing up for work. Me as an assistant GM, I've been filling the role of both GM and assistant without any decisions being made. A GM is salary, assistant GM is hourly with overtime benefits. I am due for a raise in 3 months on my assistant position. What would you do? I know this is vague, but I don't want to be shortchanged, nor do I want to sound greedy. If you were in my shoes, what would you do? I mean, I think it depends on your relationship with the person you would be asking this of, like who is the boss that you would be going to and saying, if I'm going to be doing a GM's job, I want a GM's pay for as long as I'm doing it. Or maybe just give me the GM job since I'm obviously doing it. Like whoever you're going, like if the person you are going to be saying this to is someone that you have the kind of relationship with that you think they'd be receptive to it, then go for it. Go up to them and say, hey, look, ever since the GM left, I've been doing their job. So I feel like I should either be getting paid like I'm them until you hire a permanent replacement, or just make me the permanent replacement. Like either way, I feel like that's a fair compensation, So, I mean, unless you think they're going to bite your head off or fire you or something for even daring to bring it up, if that's the case, then keep your mouth shut. But if you think that it's something that they would be open to, or at least not like that hostile to, I mean, God, speak up for yourself. Try to get what you think you're worth. If you're doing the job, say you would like the pay for the job you're doing. I don't think that's being greedy. I think that's knowing your worth, knowing the value that you are contributing to the business and saying, hey, I want to be compensated for the kind of work that I've been doing. Yeah, that's what I would do if I thought I had that kind of rapport with the boss, for sure. Black Cover 95, who's finally caught up on the Ensign's log. First, I wanted to thank you for passing along my questions to Jason on the live stream a few weeks ago. That being said, I'm hoping you will pass along my request for there to be somewhere, I'm thinking in the episode, in the description of the Ensign's Log episodes, which episodes of TNG correspond to respective TEL episodes, especially since, as I understand it, you'll be skipping around. Sorry to keep harping on the point, but I cannot think of anything else to ask. I think I've brought that up with Jason before. I will bring it up with him again and see if he will add what the TNG episode is to the episode description. Because I think the episode description is a good place for it. I will mention that to him again, but honestly, that's all I can do. Like, it's in Jason's hands after that, because he takes care of all of that. He uploads the episodes, he makes up the titles and the descriptions and everything. Like, all Dana and I do is sit in front of our respective microphones and play our parts and then send our recordings to Jason, and he takes care of everything else. So I will bring it up to him and hopefully he will be responsive to it. But beyond that, there's not really much I can do. Sorry. Saw Merrick, or Set Merck. I'm not really sure how it's pronounced. I think I said Salt Merrick in the patron shout out on Trek, actually. So hopefully that's right. Anyway. Hey, Steve. I know you don't really care about this stuff, but one of your Trek Actually videos had me thinking. What if the reason the Bell riots, the eugenics wars, and the various bits of Star Trek history that have already not come to pass on our world didn't happen because, surprise, our Earth is not the Earth of the Federation, but a planet that just happened to develop in a parallel with their Earth? In a shocking coincidence or a peak of math, we ended up with almost exactly the same history and land masses and development up until the 1990s, just like the Roman Empire planet or the planet of the Coms and the Yangs. I feel like this is a neat idea, but would probably ruin Star Trek because it being our future is such an essential part. Thoughts? P.S. Is it telling that there are characters in Discovery I still can't name after 4 years, but I know everyone on Strange New Worlds after 2 episodes? Yes. Yes, it is telling. Because as much as I enjoy Discovery, you're right. There are characters in Discovery that feel like they should be important characters that even after 4 seasons, it feels like we barely know them. And they're still just blurting out random bits of their backstory in the middle of episodes. Like, that was like my favorite thing to hunt for in season 4 of Discovery. Who's going to be the random background character to just blurt out a bit of backstory in the middle of the crisis this week, you know? But as for the meat of your question, a parallel Earth in Star Trek? No, I think that's a very clever way of reconciling it, for sure. Yeah. I mean, it depends on how literal you get. Like, it is still our future because it's a TV show that we're making about the future of our planet. So, I mean, it's always going to be our future. It only becomes not our future if you get too literal with, well, gee, they said that this happened in the 90s, but it didn't happen. You know what I mean? Like, as long as you're not that literal about it and you view it as what it is, which is a TV show that people are making that is set in our future, then that's all I need. Like, I don't care that the eugenics wars didn't actually happen. Like, that means nothing to me. It doesn't hurt the show at all. But yeah, the alternate Earth thing, I mean, that's one way to sort of headcanon around it, for sure. I don't think there's anything wrong with that. And, and as I alluded to a minute ago with my joke there, I mean, it's a perfect Star Trek explanation because there are tons of parallel Earths just floating around in the galaxy in Star Trek, especially in Star Trek, the original series. So, I mean, I think it's a perfectly Star Trek way of reconciling all that. John Burns. Hey, Steve, hydrate. I hope you have a great weekend. I'm going to enjoy the hockey tonight at my brother's place. The Calgary Flames are leading the Dallas Stars and can close out the series tonight. It's Friday the 13th. Johnny Hockey Gaudreau's number is 13. Talking about heroes, take Batman. The Wayne Memorial Hospital could be a way that Bruce, good cop, could glean information on his enemies. But in order for that to happen, a billionaire would have to be looked upon as a kind human being. And since Bond villains are supposed to be morons, you have a gun, kill Bond. Why not supervillains? It's lazy writing, and sadly, it's closer to the Zack Snyder way of doing things that many would like to admit. Plus, since the inside of the hospital is so rarely shown, it's possible that it's a comment on the terrible U.S. healthcare system. It's so bad, even patients don't get transported to Bruce's homage to his own parents, the Wayne Memorial Hospital. Truly sad. Go Flames. Thoughts? I think that's a wonderful idea. The Wayne Memorial Hospital could be a way that Bruce could glean information on his enemies. I guess like you take the supervillains to the hospital and Batman can hear what they say. Like they talk about their crimes to the doctors or to each other when they're in beds next to each other in the emergency room, and Bruce can overhear it because it's his hospital. I'm not really sure what you're getting at there, John, but I'm sure it makes sense if I knew how. But yeah, go Flames. Hometown team, baby. It's important. Go Flames. And finally, last question from yet another exhausted teacher. You all know who that means it is. It's Dana. It's Dana. Dana is the question. Dana is the exhausted teacher. Anyway, Dana's question. Oh, yet another exhausted teacher's question is, Strange New Worlds debuted on your birthday, Steve. Happy belated. And then before that, within the last few years, we've had Prodigy, Picard, Lower Decks, and Discovery at the least. Maybe there's another one or two that I've missed. I don't recall any Star Trek shows between those and DS9 Voyager back in the 90s. So what I'm wondering is, why? What has caused such a relatively sudden uptick in new Star Trek material? It seems like it's not just the movie reboot, as this is all new. Is it a response to the MCU or the Star Wars franchise expansion? Is it a response to real-world culture? What are your thoughts? Well, you did miss Enterprise. Enterprise was in there after Voyager. And the Enterprise was the last one before, the last TV show before Discovery. And then there were also the Kelvin timeline movies, like the reboot, Chris Pine, Zachary Quinto, Carl Urban, Zoe Saldana, Star Trek movies starting in 2009. I think it's totally a response to the MCU. And probably Star Wars to a lesser extent. But Star Wars as well, yeah, because, Star Wars is doing streaming shows now, big time, and also, more movies are on the horizon. And I think it was Viacom CBS looking at the intellectual property that it owns and seeing that shared universes or expanded universes were becoming the big thing with the MCU and with the expansion of Star Wars. And they said, what have we got that we could use for that? And just like they did in the 70s when they asked the same question after Star Wars, they hit upon Star Trek. And they said, here's this thing we have that has a pre-existing fan base that is hungry for new material. And we could get that audience, and we could also hopefully grow a much larger audience. And we're going to go for it because cinematic universes, shared universes are all the rage. And we have one just sitting here that we can take advantage of. So let's make some new Star Trek. And that's what they've been doing. So yeah, I think that's it. I think that's the main reason why there is so much new Star Trek now and why there wasn't this much new Star Trek 10 or 15 years ago. I think that's definitely it. Some of the content of the shows is a response to real world culture because that's always been part of what Star Trek does. It provides social commentary, but in terms of the studio's motivation to start making it, I think it's totally a response to the MCU primarily and to Star Wars to a lesser extent. Yeah, I think that's the long and short of it. So yet another reason for me to love the MCU, because I love the MCU. I love the movies and the TV shows. And now I can also love it because it is the motivating factor behind Paramount saying, let's crank out some new Star Trek. So thanks, Iron Man. And may you rest in peace. Well, that was the last patron/member question. So you know what time it is now. It's time for me to turn my full attention to the live chat. and see what everybody's been talking about and see if anybody has any questions, etc., that you want to talk about for the next hour or so before I wrap this up. Let's see what everybody's saying. Yeah, Dana, sorry. I'm sorry. I don't know how that slipped out, but you know, I let people know that it was you that asked that question. Black Cover 95 says, sorry, I didn't wish you a happy birthday. I did. That's completely fine. That's completely fine. I make no big deal whatsoever of my birthday. I do not mind at all if people don't wish me a happy birthday. But thank you. 255 AD says, you said a new Hays Code is plausible, but do you think it's particularly likely? I forgot to include that in my question. I don't think it's super likely. No, I don't think it's super likely. Kane20C says, podcast report, 35 episodes of Ensign's Log till I'm caught up. Wasn't able to listen at quite the clip I'm used to. Finally got to the Dana episodes, though. She's great. Isn't she just? She is. Dana is fantastic. And she's good on the podcast, too. I haven't listened to all of it yet, but I was listening to our new episode a little while ago that just went up today. And, oh, such a good show. That we're just getting started on season 5, and so far it has been I've been very pleased with it. Very pleased with it. Sinister Intelligence has a super chat. Thank you, Some Random Geek, and here it is. Thank you, Sinister Intelligence. Thank you, my friend, for the super chat. And it says, I like the L cars as an 80s nerd, but yeah, I like the naval old school consoles just as much. Oh, for sure. L cars was like that was the whole look of TNG era Trek, you know, like all of their computer consoles in TNG and Deep Space Nine and Voyager, like that was, you know, that was a big part of the aesthetic. I really liked Alcars. I thought it was a cool look, you know, because it was obviously organized, but it wasn't, it didn't really remind you of anything contemporary, you know. And I thought it was cool. But yeah, I liked the original series movie aesthetic a lot. Yes, Jason, I did answer your question. Yeah, I answered it a little while ago when I was doing the patron and member questions. Daryl Letts, I like this. Speaking of alliteration, how about Steve Shives, swoons and savors, tasty treats and sheets? Oh my God. Alliteration and a rhyme. I love that. That is quality writing. That is quality writing. Black Cover 95 Ensign's Log uploads every other week, usually on a Friday. Sometimes Jason will put up a new episode on a Thursday, but it's almost always on Friday. So every other Friday. So today a new episode went up, which means a new episode will be up not next Friday, but Friday after next. 225 AD says, what is an example of a Trek episode so bad you would not watch it even if it was on TV and you were in a motel room with no other entertainment source? Code of Honor is probably one. Pretty much any episode from this just completed season of Picard. All but maybe one Loaxana Troy episode from TNG or Deep Space Nine. What's another really rotten episode? Someone said Spock's Brain in the chat, but Spock's Brain is a fun episode. It's a bad episode, but it's watchable. Tin Man. Tin Man's always been one of my least favorite TNG episodes. I rewatched it a few months ago because some people were saying that they actually really liked it. And so I watched it again just to see if I had forgotten or if I was missing something or, you know, just look at it with fresh eyes. I still think it's just terrible. It's just awful. So yeah, Tin Man would be on the list. Some Random Geek. Folks are suggesting I donate to a charity in my younger brother's name for his birthday. What charity should I donate to? Feminist Frequency? I think that's a great idea. Make a donation in your brother's name to Feminist Frequency and, you know, send him like a card or, you know, an acknowledgement or something like Feminist Frequency. Thanks you for your contribution. Put your brother's email address in. Get your brother on the mailing list. There you go. Happy birthday, buddy. Happy birthday. Super chat from John Burns. Thank you, my friend. The Dana part. Spoiler alert. Batman beats up Henchman before he gets to the supervillain. Henchman can be interrogated. And Aunt May has cancer? I hope not. Oh, poor Aunt May. Yeah. So Batman beats up a henchman. The henchmen get to the hospital, and then Batman can find them in their hospital room and interrogate them. Caitlin says, I was disagreeing with you about Star Trek Picard in the first half of the season, but the final episode just kept making me laugh in what was meant to be dramatic or emotional moments. Yeah, that's never a good sign. One of the things I thought was interesting about um, the second season of Picard, it's one of those opportunities to sort of study how I respond to things versus how other people respond to them, because there were a lot of people who said, well, the first episode was really good, or the first 3 episodes were really good, but then, I started to not like it as the season went on. And I was very worried from the first episode. Like, I did not think the first episode was good at all because of the pacing, because so little happened. Like, I got to the end of that first episode and I thought they should have gotten to this point by the end of the first act. Like, this has taken way too long already, like they took an entire episode. It's a 10 episode season. They took an entire episode just to get to the point where where the timeline changed. And then they took more than another full episode to get to the actual time travel. Like, I was not happy with it from the start. So I think it's interesting that there are people who that seems to be a very common opinion that I've seen. Like, a lot of people feel like they were with it for the first 2 or 3 episodes, and then as it went on after that, they started to sort of lose faith in it. But it didn't have me from the very beginning. At the end of that first episode, I was like, I don't know about this. Like, this is taking an awfully long time to get places, And Black Cover 95 says, why do you hate Loxana Troy anyway? I mean, I don't hate her. It's not hatred. I just think she's a really, really off-putting character. I think she's a repellent character. She's a bad person, like in universe. Like, if you judge her by the standards by which we judge real people, she's a terrible person. And she's not, I think a lot of times we're meant to take her as funny. I don't think she's funny. We're meant to understand her because, well, she is the way she is, but she's this way for this reason or whatever. And I don't find her sympathetic. I don't find her interesting. I don't find her funny. And on top of that, and I know this is blasphemy to a lot of Star Trek fans, but I think Majel Barrett was a rotten actor. So she's a bad character played by a bad actor who keeps popping up in stuff, and yeah. So no, I'm annoyed by how often she appears, given how rotten her character is and how rotten the actor who plays her is. Another super chat from John Burns, who says, more like Bruce Wayne, hence the whole good cop part. And the henchman could have an aunt named May who has cancer and he needed money for treatment. Right, like Spider-Man, do it for Aunt May. Super chat from Jason McLean, who says, to add to John, Batman then travels to the MCU multiverse to help Doctor Strange. Say what? I could see they should do the Robert Pattinson Batman crossing over with Doctor Strange, because I mean, yeah, that I could do that. I could see that. Radical Bacon says, so my anxiety, Ari repealing Roe has my anxiety going, what do? I mean, find something to focus on that'll distract you, I guess. Work on a hobby. 255 AD says, what do you think of Christie's defense of RBG? She was probably in denial about her own mortality. Well, that may indeed have been the case. But then somebody should have pulled her aside and said, look, you need to do the responsible thing here. Like, maybe you are in denial, but the hard fact is you're not going to live forever, and you're way closer to the end than you are to the beginning. Like, there are far fewer days ahead than there were behind. So, let's do the right thing here. You know what I mean? That may well have been the what was going on in Ginsburg's mind, and that is and that is sympathetic, but like she still should have resigned. um Sloane Ranger, I mean, I know a lot of people like that scene. I find that scene incredibly cloying. Um I'm not a fan of that scene at all. Oh, sorry, John. I missed another super chat. Not actually Trek, actually top 10 non-Trek sci-fi episodes. Top 10 non-Trek series list. Why I, Steve Shives, enjoyed watching the animated series. Um, yeah, I'm going to talk about in my Trek Actually video for next month, where I talk about where Star Trek came from. I'm going to talk about a little bit of non-Trek sci-fi. And I guess I could do videos about other non-Trek sci-fi stuff at some point. And I've already done a little. Oh, and do you mean like Star Trek the animated series? I think I've done a video about Star Trek the animated series. I did it a few years ago, and I mean I bring it up from time to time if there's a reason to. Like I'll reference an episode, just like I'll reference an episode of one of the other shows if there's a reason to talk about it, given the thesis of a particular video. But yeah, talking about non-sci-fi Star Trek stuff is fun. And I've done it from time to time. But thank you for drawing my attention to the super chat that I missed, and thank you for the super chat. Some random geek, thank you. That's good information. I added some abortion resources to the charitylinks.page doc. It is at the top of the page in the doc. So yeah, I'm gonna mention it again at the end of the show. But since it's been brought up, charitylinks.page that some random geek maintains for us has links to friends of ours who need a helping hand, and also now links to abortion resources that you can support if that's something that you feel drawn to do. So there you go. That's a great idea. Trude 5AD says, do you think it's possible for governments to stop social changes by legislating art? I want to agree with you on that Hays Code question, but not optimistic. I don't think it's possible to stop. I think it's possible and has happened many times in the past for them to throw up obstacles and to slow social change and to make social change more difficult to realize. But I don't think that you can stop it completely. Yeah, Daryl, there is a Quantum Leap reboot. I think NBC has ordered it to series. I think that was the news. That was the news last week. That I knew there had been a pilot in the works, but apparently NBC was impressed enough with it that they've ordered it to series. So I'm looking forward to it too. I'm very curious about it. And apparently it's not a hard reboot. It continues from the original series. It's like another leaper picking up where Sam left off. So I think that could be really cool. Radical Bacon, are we actually in the bad place? I'm afraid so. Actually, no, because people in the bad place live forever. So no, we're not technically in the bad place. 255 AD says on Patreon, Thomas Smith asked for recommendations of bad Trek episodes for him and his friend to make fun of on their sci-fi podcast. Any suggestions? I mean, Spock's Brain is a good one. Code of Honor is a good one. Justice is a good one. Angel 1 is a good one to make fun of, by which I mean a bad one. I love this episode, but Move Along Home would be a great episode to make fun of. I'm trying to think of like episodes that would make good like Mystery Science Theater type material. I mean, Move Along Home would be great. Dromedus Personae would be great. I mean, there are lots of good Star Trek episodes that would be good for that too, like The Enemy Within, because Shatner's overacting there is just fucking magnificent. So, The Enemy Within would be a good one too, even though it's actually a good episode, but it would be fantastic to make fun of. Yeah, Kara, that's a good point. Kara, he says with RBG they may have tried, but she may not have listened. Yeah, I mean, I mean, it wouldn't surprise me if somebody tried to put a bug in her ear about it and she just, blew it off. Del Tashlin, no, Kirk survived. Kirk survived. Michael Handeline says, "Do you think Strange New World should have James Kirk as captain of the Enterprise at any point in its run? I don't want it, but I'm concerned they'll do that." No, and I don't think that's the plan. I think they're going to stick with Pike and Anson Mount. I don't really see. I mean, Anson Mount seems happy to be doing the show. Like, I don't think he's, you know, thinking of it as, well, like, they signed me up for 2 seasons. That's all I'm doing. And then I'm out of here. Like, he seems happy with the job. So if they do more beyond the second season that they've already started filming, I would expect Pike would still be the captain. I mean, so I wouldn't expect Kirk to show up as captain anytime soon. Uh, you know, I mean, Kirk is going to be in the show in some capacity in season 2. They already announced that, but in terms of how much of a role he will play, how many episodes he'll appear in, what his role will be in the story, like, we have no idea. But I don't think we'll see him as captain. No. Radical Bacon, how hot is it right now? It is 72 here, but it's the humidity. It's been raining off and on all day, so it's a humid heat. Ooh, Kara the Omega Glory. Yeah, that's a good one. That's a good one. JP Fryer says, "Hi, Steve. As a liberal, have you ever had to deal with having very conservative family or living in a mostly conservative community? If so, any advice on how to do it?" Yes, I have both. The part of I live in Maryland, which is a blue state, but the part of it that I live in is extremely red, is basically Trump country. So I live and have lived all my life in a very politically conservative community, and my immediate family is far more conservative than I am. They're not like crazy conservative, but they're way more conservative than I am. So I mean, I have experience with both. And my advice is to find your people. There are always going to be people in the community, hopefully, who you can find some to get along with and make friends with, who will be more of your own political persuasion. Find your people and connect with them and build your own community through that. And associate with the conservatives as little as possible. That has been my strategy. Radical Bacon, I have not tried the new Coca-Cola flavor. No, I have not. I have not tried Stardust Coke. No. Yeah, I mean, John Burns, I think that's a good idea to, I mean, I would be all for bringing back the old-fashioned filibuster and saying, look, if you want to filibuster the vote, then you need to stand up and talk. But, like, that's, I mean, as Caitlin points out, they changed the rules so they don't, most of the time they don't have to actually stand up and talk anymore. They can just they call for a cloture vote, and if they don't have the votes, then the bill doesn't move forward. So, but I would be all for making them stand up and talk, because you're right, they do look foolish when they talk. Dana says, "My family is technically more conservative than I am, but that's really not saying much." That's true. And also, I think you would agree that you are more tolerant of being around conservative people than I am. And I mean, part of that is out of necessity because of your job and the part of the country that you live in and your extended family, etc. Like, I guess you just don't really have a choice. But I mean, all the times in my life that I have had to spend time around right wing people that I knew were Republican voters and were like anti-gay and, you know, secretly racist, if not outspokenly racist, and like rabidly pro-gun. Like, and I had to spend time with them and listen to their fucking bullshit because they were family, and I just was compelled to go to a family thing. It's always been kicking and screaming. Like I've always hated it, and I do it as little as I possibly can. So I think it's, you know, fair to say that you're more tolerant of being around conservatives than I am. Although I'm glad to hear that when you say everyone in your family primaried Sanders and or Warren. That, I mean, I think that's great. I cannot say the same for my family. Radical Bacon says, shouldn't we impeach Supreme Court justices that have lied to get the job? Yeah, I think we should. I think you're right. Super chat from Stephen Hart says, Biden outright said he would support the old filibuster as a compromise. Yeah, I think they should do that. Like, it would be better than nothing. Like, I would prefer they just get rid of the fucking thing. But if they can't, if they don't have the votes to get rid of it, bring back the, if you want a filibuster, then you got to stand up and talk. That's the rules, you know? 255 AD says, do people in your community ever assume you're conservative because of how you dress? I mean, you kind of look like a truck driver. They very well may, but it doesn't really make any, I never really know because I don't associate with people very often. So, I mean, they might, but I don't know. There was one time when I was standing in line, this was a few years ago, I was standing in line at the pharmacy, and the guy in line in front of me was talking politics, and he was, you know, he was shit talking the Democrats or something, and he turned around and kind of included me in the conversation, like he assumed I was on his side. And I don't know if that's because of how I look or because he just figured that since he was in the area he was in, chances are the people around him were going to be on his side. So I don't know if that was necessarily based on my appearance or not, but I have been sort of passively assumed to be conservative by other conservatives before. Yeah. Yeah, Dana, so far left that you have been exited, pursued by a bear. I made you a shirt. I made you a shirt. One of these days, I'm going to be able to actually give it to you. But yeah, remember when I designed the shirt and you gave me input, and you know, yeah, there's a shirt. There's a shirt. 255 AD says, do the checks and balances in your government system do anything other than stymie change most people want? No, I don't think the checks and balances, the constitutional checks and balances, I don't think are the problem. I think the constitutional checks and balances are there for a reason and should be there. I don't think that's the problem. I don't think they stand in the way of change. I mean, they could, you know what I mean? Like Congress could pass a really progressive bill and the president could veto it. Like theoretically, they could work that way and have worked that way at times in the past. But in general, I don't think the constitutional checks and balances between branches of government are the problem. 225 AD, I didn't say anything to him. I didn't say anything to him. Well, Jesus, Dana, you don't have to yell, God. God damn it. I mean, it's also, you know, I mean, it's the line from Shakespeare. It's the stage direction from Shakespeare. So you could have just been referencing that. It wasn't necessarily true that you were referencing the thing that we did in the shirt, okay? Maybe I thought maybe you forgot. Just give me a minute. I'm okay. So, oh, John Burns says, how do you feel about the kids in the hall on Amazon? Did you like the kids in the hall collecting that sweet, sweet Amazon money? Yeah, I'm really curious to see the new show, the new series they're doing. I'm going to watch it. I loved the original Kids in the Hall. In fact, just today, oddly enough, since you asked, I watched, remember the Dave Foley doctor sketch? It's not really, it's like a monologue where he comes out in like surgical gown and he's covered in blood. And he gives that monologue to the camera where he's like, "Yo, can I tell you something? I'm a really bad doctor." And he gives like a 2 or 3 minute little comic monologue about how, he got to be a doctor even though he was never any good at it, and he just got by on his charm. And it's a really funny little monologue. So I watched. I still watch old Kids in the Hall stuff. I love the Kids in the Hall. I think they're hilarious. Um, Kara, that's nice, but you weren't the one shouting. I'm sorry, Dana. Now you're going to cry. Please don't cry. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just, I felt like you were yelling at me and attacking me, and I just lashed out. It's my fault. It's my fault. Don't cry. I know you remember the important things. You don't. Please don't. I'm sorry. I'm sorry. Please don't cry. I'm sorry. You still crying? Are you good? Are you good? Okay. Anyway. Um, 255 AD. You know what? Good point. My government has far less checks and balances than yours, but you're closer to fascism. Yeah, good. You know what? Touche, my friend. Touche. Oh, is the new Kids in the Hall out already? I didn't even know it was up yet. If it's out, then I'll check it out. I'll try to watch some of it this weekend. Yeah, I love the Kids in the Hall. John Burns, I guess maybe I look like a trucker, but truckers wear adjustable baseball caps, and mine is a fitted cap. I always wear a fitted cap because I'm classy like that. So I don't wear no fucking trucker hat. I wear a proper fitted baseball cap. So in that way, I defy the trucker stereotype. Anyway, super chat from Carlisle the Cinephile. Thank you, my friend. Says, have you seen Multiverse of Madness yet? If so, what are your thoughts? I have not seen it. I probably will not see it in the theater. I will wait for it to pop up on Disney Plus. So I haven't seen it yet. I have no thoughts on it as of yet. JTH Fear says, have you played or reviewed the interactive movie / PC game Star Trek Klingon or Star Trek Borg? It's got lots of sweet, sweet Gowron action. No, I've never played either one of those, but I do have a video coming out next week about Klingons. It was a video I was commissioned to do about who is the most honorable Klingon in Star Trek, and I wrote it this past week, and I'm shooting it tomorrow, and it'll be up for Wednesday next week. And there's lots of sweet, sweet Gowron action in that too. I love me some Gowron. Oh, Radical Bacon, Jesus Christ. I saw Multiverse with a friend in 3D, and there was a scene that nearly made me throw up. That's a ringing endorsement. John Burns, I'm not a doctor. I'm just a man. Yeah. 255 AD. I don't know if, the checks and balances were introduced by the founders to insulate the elite from change. I don't think that's harsh or cynical. I mean, I don't think it's out of bounds to accuse the founding fathers of being elites and wanting to protect the status quo that they were trying to establish with the Constitution. But the checks and balances were more about trying to prevent any person or single group of people from becoming too powerful in the government. That's the idea behind the checks and balances. So Congress has a lot of power, but that power is checked by the president. The president has a lot of power, but that power is checked by the Congress. The Supreme Court has a lot of power, but that power can be checked by Congress and the president, and the Supreme Court can also check the power of the president. And like, it's about making sure that the government itself and that individual groups and people in the government cannot become too powerful. That's the idea behind the checks and balances. So I don't think it's necessarily about protecting the elites from change so much as it is about preventing misuse or monopolization of government power. But the point about elites not wanting to be forced to change, I think, is a good one. I just don't know if it necessarily applies with the checks and balances. Um, Knit and Crochet Tiger, what grade would you give the 2 episodes of Strange New Worlds we've seen? I mean, I don't really like to give grades or ratings or anything. I think that's kind of silly. If we're talking letter grade, I guess they would both be like an A minus or a B plus, something like that. They were both very good. I liked them both very much. Um, Radical Bacon, if you were to drop merch, what merch would you drop? Obviously a hat, but what would be on it? Well, my smiling face, of course. A big old Steve face with his own hat. So there'd be a hat on the face on the hat, and it would just be me going like, or something like that. I don't know. Or maybe stuffy. Get like a stuffy head and put it on the hat. I don't know. I'm just making this shit up. I'm never gonna have merch. Um, yeah, Kara Hughes, exactly. That's a good comparison there. The consuls in the Romulan Empire. There were two, or the Roman Empire. I said the Romulan Empire, the Roman Empire. So there were two, so they would each keep the other honest, except if both were corrupt, you were screwed. Yeah, there's a certain flaw in the system, isn't it? Like, so wait, I've only got to get to two guys? uh, John Burns, 2 words. President of the world, Brent Spiner. Okay, 6 words. I mean, he it felt like things have gotten bad enough that I could entertain voting for a Star Trek actor for president. Yeah, I mean, I would vote for Brent Spiner. Sure, fuck it. Like, after you've had Trump as president, the idea of what about the guy who played Data? Yeah, sure, fuck it. Like, how can we do any worse than the last guy? Um, John Brockman says, now that you hate Star Trek, will you go full anti woke and join David Silverman on the far right grift? Oh, absolutely. Yeah, absolutely. I don't have a soul or any integrity. Of course I'll do that. Um, 255 AD, yes, the Senate originally was designed to be a body that would represent the elite more. Yes, the initial formulation of the Senate was that senators would be appointed, not popularly elected. So it was to be, more of an elitist body. Yes, absolutely. That's absolutely true. It's not like that anymore, but initially that was the idea. Yeah. Jason McLean says, that's Chancellor Gowron. Not anymore. I love Gowron. I love Gowron so much. Oh, Harry Behemoth, I like that. The final episode reveals that the entire Picard series takes place inside Wesley Crusher's snow globe. And when Will Wheaton appears in that scene, he also doesn't even bother to act and just acts like himself. Just like in his fucking Picard cameo. He's like, it's been so long since I was on the show, I forgot how to play Wesley. Ah, fuck, never mind. Yeah, Knit and Crochet Tiger. Reagan did kind of ruin it for the other actors, didn't he? That is, I mean, at least you would think. Like, you would think he ruined it for other actors. But I don't know if he did. Because, there's lots of Republicans that still really like him. So, well, 255 AD, the Senate isn't, I mean, the Senate is only half of Congress. So I mean, the formulation of when you say checks and balances, the fact that the Senate was originally um, that senators were originally to be appointed, that's not necessarily what I think of when I think of checks and balances. When I think of checks and balances, I think of the branches of government checking each other. So Congress would be a branch of government, with Congress consisting of both the Senate and the House. So that has a check on the president and on the Supreme Court, right? So the legislative branch has a check on the judicial branch and the executive branch. So the composition of the Senate, or the method of choosing senators, doesn't really come into play as far as the check goes. But again, on your broader point of the founding fathers wanting, being elitist and wanting to protect their own status in society and their ability as a class to hold most or all of the power in government. I think that's a very valid point. Yeah, but specifically as applied to checks and balances in the government, I don't see how it quite applies. Didn't Crochet Tiger? That's a good question. I think he was a host longer. I think he was a host longer, but I mean, he has done some acting. Yeah, I mean, Jon Stewart has appeared in movies. He's done like proper acting, um, but he was on the Daily Show for a long time, so I don't know. And I think once he started the Daily Show, he didn't really, especially once the Daily Show got super popular and became like his main gig. I don't think he really did that much acting after that. So, but I don't know. I'd have to actually look at like his IMDb page. Um, no, yeah, 255 AD. You have you know what? You have a point. Okay, you win. You have a point. um, JGH Fear says, "Do you think they rushed the Picard season 3 cast reveal to soften a damp season 2 reception?" Maybe. I mean, I don't know what their decision making process was like. It wouldn't surprise me, because it does seem like, even though again there it definitely has its defenders. Like there are certainly people who really genuinely seem to have liked season 2 of Picard. The overall reception of it seems to have been pretty poor, or at least a lot chillier than most of the other new stuff up to this point. Um, so it would not surprise me if someone at the studio panicked and said, "Fuck, quick! Tell them Worf's coming back." We got to make sure that they stay on the hook for season 3. Tell them Worf's coming back. Tell them Dr. Crusher's coming back. So I mean, it wouldn't surprise me. Yeah, Daryl Lutz, that's a good point. Ukraine's leader came out of showbiz too, and most of the American people love him, so maybe showbiz people. Well, no, I mean, that's the thing. Like, just because someone, look, I am of the opinion that a much more diverse range of careers ought to be represented in government anyway. Like, I think it's really too bad that almost every elected official, certainly at the federal level and mostly at the state level as well, like the ones that are professionals that have had a profession before they became a politician, they're almost all lawyers. And there's nothing against lawyers. I'm not like an anti-lawyer person. Like lots of lawyers are fantastic. Lawyers can be great people who do great important work. But the fact that they are so grossly overrepresented in elected government is not something I'm a fan of. Why aren't there more teachers and working class people and poets and writers and actors and artists. You know what I mean? And I mean, a big part of that is money. Like, money is a huge barrier. That's why there aren't working class people in Congress, because they can't afford to run, because the money is a barrier, and we should do something about that. We should have publicly funded elections, like at every level, so that money is no longer an insurmountable obstacle for people who want to run for office. But I would also love to see a greater diversity of careers. Why shouldn't there be more actors in government, or writers or artists or scientists or any number of different careers? I think that would be a fantastic thing. Radical bacon. Why do you need me to wrench them all? Why do you need multiple accounts with mod access? Isn't what you have enough? Isn't the fact that I made that I made Radical Bacon a moderator enough for you? You want multiple mods? 2 to 5 AD, no, they shouldn't be elected. SCOTUS judges shouldn't be elected. They should be appointed. But I would be in favor of them. Oh, look, there's. You know what? I'll call your fucking bluff. Actually, no, I won't. Fuck that. I'm standing my ground. I'm standing my ground. I'm standing my ground. God damn it. Radical Bacon is wrenched. S. Lee doesn't need the fucking wrench. Yeah, more wrenches in a live chat that's like half wrenches already. Anyway, should Supreme Court justices be elected? No, they should not. Should they have term limits? I think that's probably a good idea. They should be long ass terms, like maybe like a 20-year term. It should be a longer term than other like elected officials. But yeah, I would be in favor of term limits for Supreme Court justices. I would also be in favor of Congress being a lot more proactive with its impeachment power. Because like somebody brought up earlier, if like Radical Bacon, I think was who brought it up. If a Supreme Court justice is found to have committed perjury in the hearing that helped them get their job, I don't know, that kind of sounds like grounds for impeachment to me. Super chat from John Burns, who says, Jon Stewart mentioned sitting around with stand-up comedians chatting about their worst experience, and then Zelensky says they had rockets. Yeah, that's that Zelensky's, when Zelensky says he was bombing, actually he was the one, they were bombing him, so it doesn't work quite the same way. Well, 255 AD says about Roe going away makes bodily autonomy a privilege. Yeah, absolutely. I agree. A lot of people have wow, you do have a lot of accounts. A lot of people have pointed that out, that there will still be people who are wealthy enough to get them will still be able to get abortions. The burden will fall disproportionately on the poor, on people who don't have the resources to go to a state where it's still legal, which is a similar situation to how it was before Roe, although it was illegal pretty much everywhere. But if you were rich enough, you could get an illegal abortion and not have to worry about getting caught, or if there was some kind of medical complication, you would have the resources to get it seen to. So it would be a somewhat similar situation to how things were pre-Roe, where the burden would be carried predominantly by the poor. And that sucks. That's one of the reasons why Roe was decided initially, because that it should not be. Like, an abortion is a form of health care, and you should not be blocked from getting a form of health care that you need or want, because of money. Like, money should not be an obstacle between you and healthcare. Yeah, Kara, if a justice is felt to have outlived their term, then perhaps time they retired gracefully. Yeah, absolutely. Like you don't have to die on the fucking bench, right? Everybody knows. You don't have to just you don't have to you don't have to spend the rest of your life as a Supreme Court justice. If you've served for 15 or 20 years and you've gotten some good time and you can go home. You don't have to stay there. Seriously, you can go home. Some random geek at John Brockman saying, "Join communism." Yes, because I want to join a party that doesn't win any elections. That's what I want. I want to completely give up my political power. It's not enough that I'm a Democrat and I find them deeply, deeply frustrating. Yeah, let me join a political party that has basically no actual power in the country whatsoever. Let me give up any chance of ever contributing to positive change at all by becoming a fucking communist. Come on. I don't want to join some vanity. Look, I'm sorry. Communists in the United States in 2022 are a fucking vanity party. The socialists, but the far left parties are. I may believe in a lot of their goals and in a lot of their things they want to accomplish, but it's a fucking vanity party. It's like the left wing version of joining like the fucking Constitution Party. It's pointless. It's an ego thing. I mean, I may be deeply frustrated with the Democrats. I may rage against their cowardice and their ineffectualness, but at the end of the day, at least they do sometimes, not as often as I wish, but sometimes win fucking elections and get things done. Like that's what you're. No, I'm not going to be a fucking communist. No. And I'm not going to be a fucking anarchist either. Because I don't think electoralism is a dead end. So there. Super chat from John Burns who says Vegreville, Alberta, Canada has the world's largest Ukrainian Easter egg. Canada is home to the largest number of Ukrainians outside the Ukraine. Well, that answers my next question, which was going to be why is the largest Ukrainian Easter egg in Canada? I guess now we know. I don't want to join the movement, John. I don't want to be another part of it is I don't really believe that anarchism is a viable political ideology. Like the main reason why I'm not an anarchist is because I don't think anarchism works. I don't think it's a viable solution. Like, look, I thought The Dispossessed was a great book as a story. I thought its political content was mostly bullshit. Like I thought Shevik was a great character, but when he started talking politics, I had my eyes rolled into the back of his head. And the back of his head, into the back of my head. They rolled so far that they rolled out of my head and into the back of Shevik's head. I'm not an anarchist because I don't believe in it. Because I think it's a nice idea that it's like what when in The Simpsons when Bart says to Homer, "What religion are we, Dad?" and he says, "Oh, what's the one with all the well-meaning rules that don't work out in real life?" That's anarchism to me. Oh, that would be nice if it would ever work on the level of a nation of hundreds of millions of people. Yeah, that would be nice if that was possible. It's not going to work. I don't believe it's ever going to work. I may not like the fact that there's always going to be a state. I may think that there are inevitable problems with there being a state, but I think the state itself is probably inevitable. I don't think there's any way around it. There's always going to be one of some form. So I think our job is to make the best one we can. John says, Finland joining NATO. Thoughts? I mean, it's probably going to it's probably going to kick up a shitstorm, but I don't blame them for wanting to join. Fuck, if I was on the border of Russia, I'd want to join NATO too if I wasn't already a member. You know? Enclave General, I agree with you. One bad thing with the Democrats is the blaming of the left or far left for not voting when they lose elections. And when left or far left candidates are going to be nominated, sometimes they deny them. Well, but sometimes that's also because far left people don't vote. I mean, it is, I mean, the Democrats who say we don't cater to the left as much because the left doesn't turn out to vote, I mean, that's not a completely unreasonable thing. But I also think the Democrats would probably get more far leftists to vote for them if they nominated more progressive leftist candidates. Like that's just a no brainer. So, I mean, I do think you're right as far as that goes. And I do think that the Democratic Party establishment is not nearly as leftist as I wish it was or as it should be. So, I mean, I agree with you there, but it's not all the Democratic Party's fault. You know, I mean, there is some legitimacy to the claim that people on the far left are not a reliable voting bloc for the Democrats. That's true. You know, um, John Burns says Michael Palin as Molotov was funny and ridiculous. Well, I mean, Michael Palin is a really funny guy. Um, yes, yes. Death of Stalin. Death of Stalin. I saw that last year. Really funny movie. Oh my, let me take a couple more questions from the chat and then I'm going to wrap this baby up because it's getting on time to 8 o'clock and it's hot and I'm just about done. Oh, let me see what else we got here. Um, Harry Behemoth asks, will there still be a state when we become mind clouds floating in the ether? Well, yes. How else will we make decisions in our mind cloud, our floating mind cloud ether community? Okay, 25580. That's interesting. Yeah, a privilege, abortion or bodily autonomy would be a privilege in the sense that it's a thing the rest of you still have, but the state can remove it on a whim, like having a driver. Right. So, like, if the state, if it's no longer a guaranteed right, then individual states can pass laws to outlaw it. That's a good point. Um, Super chat from Stephen G. Clenard. Thank you, my friend. Says, I've been investigating Picard season 3, where they claim to be bringing back the TNG crew. I call BS, as it appears they will not be bringing back. Who are they not bringing back? I'll have to wait and see what once slow mode lets Stephen uh, post again. No, I as an individual can make decisions without the state, some random geek, but as a community, as a nation, I feel like I've said before, I just feel like some kind of state is inevitable. And therefore we should just, instead of pretending that we can just get along without one, or that it would somehow be better to just not have one, we should try to make the best state that we can make. It's not a matter of I as an individual can't make decisions without the state. It's what is best, and it's what is the best circumstance for society as a whole. Okay, second part of Stephen's question. Dr. Pulaski, Roe Nurse Ogawa, Livingston, Ensign Gates, Dr. Solar, Chief Engineer Argyle, or Hollow Leah Brahms. You know what? You're right. Unless they are planning on bringing back all those fucking characters. You're right. It would be nice to see Dr. Pulaski again, wouldn't it? I mean, assuming they could write a story for her. Camp Chalmers, is my AC broken? No, I'm just being stubborn. I'm putting off turning on the AC as late into the year as possible. I could turn the AC on tonight if I really wanted to, and I may. I don't know. It's not actually, like I say, it's not super hot. It's only in the low 70s, but it's so humid. It's a close heat. So I don't know. I may break down and turn it on, but we'll see. Um, Super chat from John Burns. Do women need guns to get abortions? Second Amendment. Boy, that would be quite a pickle, wouldn't it? That would be an example of fucking right wingers reaping what they sow. Women using their Second Amendment rights to demand their abortion rights. Stephen Clenard said, another super chat, thank you very much, says, worse yet, it is not going to take place on the Enterprise D. What is the point of producing a lazy, nostalgic circle jerk if you aren't going to pander all the way? Well, that's why I think they should just completely disregard the last, 28 years of continuity and just pretend that it's TNG season 8 and just set the whole thing on the Enterprise D and pretend that no time has gone by, even though the actors are all visibly much older. Just put everybody right back on the Enterprise D and just do TNG season 8. I mean, yeah, because you're right. If you're going to do a lazy, nostalgic fan service circle jerk, then just fucking do it. Why pretend that's not what you're doing? Some random geek, are there any stateless societies that are the size of the United States and that occupy the position in the global community that the United States does? Oh, thank you, 255 AD. I hope Thomas picks one of the ones I recommend. I'm sure the ones I mentioned, have been mentioned a bunch by other people. Kim Chalmers with a member message says, bring back the Code of Honor people for season 3. Oh my God. No, don't do that. I mean, unless you're going to do a comedy, unless you're going to do like a send up of it. Yeah, then go for it. Bring them back and just roast the shit out of that whole episode. That would be fantastic. Anyway, it's almost some random geek. We are the size of the United States. That's my point. This idea that we're just going to break up into smaller countries. Who's going to do that? How's that going to work? Like, let me just wave my magic anarchist wand and boom, we're all just a bunch of little communes now. And we won't get invaded by anybody. Like other countries that mean us harm won't seize the opportunity, or bad actors within the country who have access to, more resources. They won't hoard and accumulate power and impose their will on that. That would never happen. It's a nice idea that I just don't see any way it would ever actually work in reality. Especially since most people in the United States don't even think it's that nice of an idea. Like, most people aren't even as friendly toward it as I am. So and see, this is exactly my point. Here are the two examples. The Indus Valley civilization and Catalonia. That when I asked for countries, anarchist countries that are of the size and influence of the United States, those are the suggestions. Catalonia and the Indus Valley civilization. I rest my case. I'm sorry. I have a practical side that says, do you want to accomplish things, or do you want to just jerk yourself off? If you want to become involved in politics, do you want to involve yourself in a way that at least has a chance of bringing about positive change and accomplishing something, or do you want to just make yourself feel better? So anyway, Yeah, I think Iris has the right idea. Anarchy is a nice thing to strive for, but humanity is nowhere near ready for it. I mean, if we get to the point where you and someone, Caitlin says it's not meant to be a sudden course, a sudden change. I mean, if anarchists can succeed in changing enough hearts and minds where there are enough people, not just in this country, but all over the world, who are ready to try that kind of society and have come up with some way to peacefully implement it in a way that would not be destabilizing and would not lead to the deaths of millions of people and would not lead to chaos and could actually work and be sustainable, then I would be all for it. But I have never seen anybody draw me a map of how to get there from here that looks to me like a path that we could walk, and B, would be worth it when we got there. That's my big problem. You know, that's the big barrier between me and anarchists, and that's why I think, practically speaking, it's a vanity. It's a vanity project. So you know, but I mean, our goals, broadly speaking, are aligned. You know what I mean? Like if you could wave the magic wand and make it all happen, it doesn't sound like a terrible world in some ways. In other ways, like, I mean, I think I said when me and Dana were doing the book review of the Dispossessed, it doesn't sound like a world I would want to live in. You know, the anarchist world. I forget the name of it now. I don't know. The world that Shevik is from, the society that Shevik is from. It does. I mean, it's no place I would ever want to live. You know, but some of the ideals are admirable. But anyway, on that note, I will call these festivities to a close. Thanks to everybody for the questions and the super chats. Don't forget the charity links, charitylinks.page, maintained by our pal, Some Random Geek. Some friends of ours who need a helping hand, and also now abortion resources that Geek has added to the list. If you click the link in the description, it takes you to a Google Doc full of resources for people and organizations who need your help. So if you're looking to be generous and toss a few bucks toward a worthy cause, charitylinks.page is definitely there for you. And I would encourage you, and we would all encourage you to make use of that and to donate if you are able to, and if you are of a mind to. Also, don't forget, if you want to support my channel, you can either click the join button down there and become a channel member, or become a patron by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. Members and patrons at all levels get to submit questions ahead of time for the Ask Away live streams. You get a link at the beginning of the week when there's an Ask Away coming up on that Friday, and you can go and submit your question through the Google Doc, and those are the questions that I answer at the beginning of the Ask Away stream. So if that sounds good to you, and if you want to support my channel and help me to continue doing what I do, either go to patreon.com/Steve Shives to become a patron, or click the join button and become a channel member. Also, don't forget that in addition to the YouTube stuff, I am a member or a co-host of a couple of podcasts as a part of the Let Me Listen family of podcasts. There is Late Seating, the movie review podcast, where Jason Harding and I take a look at classic films and see if they deserve whatever reputation they have, be it good or bad. Our most recent episode was my birthday episode, where we reviewed the Patrick Swayze classic Roadhouse. It was an awesome episode. I love the movie. Jason does not, but it was a great episode of Late Seating. And our new episode, which will go up a week from today, will be Jason's birthday episode, where we will talk about his birthday movie this year, which is the classic Terry Gilliam time travel film noir adventure mystery, blah, 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 12 Monkeys, starring Bruce Willis and Brad Pitt. That's next week. And also, the other podcast is the Ensign's Log, the Star Trek themed comedy podcast that I do alongside Jason, and also our very own Dana Cole, who is a cast member of the Ensign's Log, and as a couple people have pointed out in the chat just tonight, does a fantastic job. New episode of the Ensign's Log went up today. We are a couple episodes into the 5th season of the Ensign's Log now, so if you're a fan of my Star Trek work here on YouTube, or you just like funny podcasts with funny people, check out the Ensign's Log. The links are in the description of the video. That's it for me. Don't forget to watch Dana's channel tomorrow, because tomorrow at 6 p.m. Eastern, Dana is doing another one of her regular live streams, the Saturday 6. And it will be a very special episode because Dana is chaperoning, as everybody who watches Dana's stuff know, Dana is a public school teacher, and prom is this weekend at her school, and she will be chaperoning prom. Prom is on Saturday. So she will only have a little bit of time, just a 20-minute or so window in which to do the Saturday 6, but she is such a dedicated YouTuber that she's going to do it anyway. So she will be all fixed up, looking fancy, ready to go to the prom, and she's going to take 20 minutes out of her day and do a special, super quick Saturday 6. So the link to that is in the description of this video. You can go ahead and click on that and set a reminder so you don't miss Dana's live stream tomorrow. That'll be on her channel, the Saturday 6, starting at 6 p.m. Eastern time. I will be there in the live chat watching along, and it'll be a ton of fun, I'm sure. So hopefully I'll see some of you in the chat tomorrow for the special prom edition of the Saturday 6 on Dana's channel. Thank you all for watching this with me tonight on my channel. Thank you all, those of you who are patrons and members. Thank you all for your support. And those of you who are just watching, thank you for your support as well. Hope you all have a good night and a good weekend. And I'll see you later. Take care, everybody.